and pick out those couple of quotes that speak to you. And while you do that, I'm just gonna remind you of those questions. So, short passages that fit into any of the following categories. I can relate to this, I agree with this, I disagree with this, I have a question about this. So that's the rich text part of this protocol. So you can imagine probably using this in a class where there, is a piece of text. Sometimes students would already come in having read it, but either way, pulling out those pieces that are particularly interesting to students. So the next thing that you're going to do is you guys are going to do another part of discussion protocol, which I used all the time as a classroom teacher, and I think sometimes people think it's kind of, it's the kind of thing you don't really need, especially in a small group like this. But I think roles and giving people roles and jobs in discussion is something I always felt really helped facilitate the discussion for a lot of reasons, which we can talk about afterwards. So there are actually 4 roles up on that board, but because we're such a small group, and we're gonna have one more person that's gonna add in here in a minute, I took out the role of facilitator and instead just have recorder, reporter, and timer. So you guys can take any one of these that you want. So take any badge you want and stick it on, and that will be your role. The job of the facilitator is going to be mixed in with the job of the reporter. So if you have a reporter badge, you're going to add to your job to facilitate the discussion. So you're going to kind of help your group keep on track, know where they are in sort of the directions, right, as we go along. The recorder is the person who's going to kind of write down ideas, jot down major takeaways that the group has, so they're going to be recording. And then the reporter at the end will be the person who's kind of the primary mouthpiece for the group, who speaks for the group and represents their ideas to the whole group. And then last but not least, it's the timer. So the timer is the person who is going to time, right? Okay, so that's pretty obvious. So they'll just keep the time for the group. All right, so now that you guys have your jobs, you're going to get into separate groups, and I'm going to take on the reporter job for this group, so I'll sit in with you guys. And the next thing you guys are going to do as part of this protocol is that you're going to start this process called the last word process. So the last word process starts with each person picking one of the passages that they chose. It doesn't matter which passage you chose, but each person's going to choose one of the 2 passages that stood out to you, and we're going to take turns sharing, but also we're going to take turns discussing each of those passages. And here's how it works. The first person, and it doesn't really matter who, typically the facilitator, or in this case the reporter, will kind of help determine who's going to go first. They have 2 minutes to explain why this passage really kind of spoke to them, why it stood out to them, why it was meaningful to them in whatever sense. And then after they are done, then each person shares, after each person shares their quote, each other person in the group has 1 minute to comment, right? So to expand on something that they said, to add their idea, to maybe even ask a clarifying question. So 2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute. Then you go to the next person in the group, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute. So the timer has a little bit of tricky work to do with like doing all this timing. But and after all the group members have commented, then that original speaker gets an opportunity for 1 minute to kind of wrap up the sort of statement about their quote. So after each round, the original speaker gets a chance to go. Does that make sense? Okay, timers, are you ready? All right, I'm gonna pull